Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of PKBinspire. I think quite recently I shared on social media my recent professional stride, having attained the Certified Supply Chain Professional Certification. Some of you reached out to me regarding what the process was like. I think I had shared that I was spending quite a copious amount of time studying and preparing towards this exam. So in this episode, I'm going to basically share with you what my CSCP certification process has been like. That is a Certified Supply Chain Professional Certification. What it took really to get this certification backed.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning.
So like with any success story, a lot of us would hear the outcome of the success, but a lot of times the behind the scenes toils and turmoils are not shared. So I'm going to share with you some of the doubts that I had going into this exam, and also some of the struggles that came with preparing for the CSCP examination. Preparing for a certification, be it ACCA, CILT, or CSCP, as in my case, requires a lot of effort. Of course, there is the financial aspect where you would have to pay quite a lot of money to get the learning materials, as well as to even pay for the examination itself. Beside the financial commitment that is required for these certification examinations, you'd also agree with me that a lot of time is needed and a lot of investment in effort is required to both study to prepare for these examinations, as well as to write the exams and pass. So my CSCP ambition really began when I was doing my MBA in Logistics and Supply Chain at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Fast forward to 2015, when my interest in this Apex CSCP certification really peaked. I applied for a fellowship called Africa Compt Fellowship. And in my application in 2015, I stated that in the next decade, one of my ambitions was to become a certified supply chain professional. Of course, back then when I was stating all these ambitions in my application, I underestimated the effort as well as the commitment that was required to become certified in supply chain management. And so the journey for the CSCP actually began in 2019 when I got the approval from my manager to actually attend the workshops towards the certification. So the Association for Supply Chain Management runs the Apex CSCP certification examination, and Apex stands for the American Production and Inventory Control Society. And to go through the Certified Supply Chain Professional certification means that you have a store of knowledge or a body of knowledge that is globally recognized as the highest standards. The CSCP certification is the gold standard when it comes to supply chain management. So it's kind of a big deal to have gone through the process to write the examination. So at the beginning of 2022, I actually decided and set a goal to get my CSCP certification. And according to the guidelines, the curriculum was being updated. So I had up to the end of March to write this examination. And as some of you may know, these certifications can be quite expensive. It ranges anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000, to get the materials and all that. So it's very, costly if you are looking to write this examination. And so there's a bit of pressure from a financial commitment point of view. And then also there's the pressure from the content, having to study laboriously for this examination. I had a discussion, with my wife, who has been very supportive, encouraged me that, it's possible to do it. Thinking back, I had about maybe 1,500 page content to complete between January and end of March. And so I took on the challenge, and I actually gave myself certain targets as far as the content was concerned. So I will not bore you with the details of the content. One of the things that I did was to set very ambitious targets, because as I explained earlier, I had barely 3 months, or 2.5 months to be more specific, to prepare and write the examination. And I basically told myself that I was going to set specific targets that ordinarily were too ambitious, but I set it that way because of the time constraint that I had. Like I mentioned earlier, end of March, the curriculum was going to be updated. And so I had basically one shot to prepare and write this examination. So what was my approach? So basically, it's maybe one single strategy. Study as much of the content as possible before the scheduled examination date. So my personal goals were to basically do 10 hours of studies a day. This was, as I mentioned earlier, quite ambitious, but I was doing this every day. I would normally do 5 hours at home and find a Starbucks somewhere in the city center to do an additional 5 hours. And on top of the 10 hours, I did some extra 2 hours normally, also either at dawn or somewhere after midnight. And these were like extra. So, technically it was 12 hours a day, but those extra 2 hours were optional. And whenever I felt that I was not too tired from the day's activities, I would push in those extra 2 to 3 hours after midnight or at dawn. So that was my learning schedule. When you're studying, I think you should go beyond just reading the content. Whilst you're making notes and writing the points, summarizing the points, you get to assimilate a lot of the information, and you get to basically understand some of the concepts quite deeply, than just a casual, reading through the materials. A week to the examination, the mind begins to play games with you. And this is going to be some experience you're going to have, whether you're preparing for your ACCA, PMP, Prince 2, whatever it is. You begin to have some doubts. Although you're putting in the best effort, you are kind of really consuming as much of the content, and whatever it is, there would be doubts, and this is quite normal. So a week to the examination, some doubts will crop in, but again, it's really a matter of putting yourself in the position where you tune out that kind of doubts that would creep into your mind. You have to stick to your guts and believe in yourself. Know that whatever preparations you're putting into this examination, and this I think really cuts across any form of examination or professional certification that you are going to put yourself through. So these doubts of course crept in, but I did not allow them to get me perturbed. I told myself I was not going to be stymied by the thoughts of what if you fail, what if you're not prepared, what if you're not good enough. All these doubts and tiny voices will creep in, but you just have to shut them out. So on the day of the exams, I basically opted for the option to write the exam within my own vicinity. So due to COVID-19, the option to write the exam in your office, in your house, or whatever it is possible. So there's an online system. You have to log in. There's an invigilator or a proctor who would basically also dial in. Your webcam is on. The proctor would examine your environment to see if there are no materials. So I went through the entire process, and by God's grace, I passed and officially became a certified supply chain professional. I have practiced supply chain for a long time, since 2014. And so this really is one of the highlights of my supply chain career. And if you're preparing for an exam or you are thinking of writing ACCA, PMP, I just want to encourage you that it is possible to get this done. You will just put yourself to it, put your mind to it, and believe that you have what it takes to pass this exam. Believe that you have what it takes to become a certified professional in whichever endeavor you find yourself in. The vision started in 2015. The process started in 2019, and the victory happened in 2022. Give yourself time. Go through the process, make sure the vision is crystallized, and gather the resources, the momentum, and the energy to pursue whatever, ambitions that you have. So thank you for joining me on this episode of PKBinspire. Until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with me.